Hey everybody, welcome back. As we dive into another caffeinated episode. Anyway, this week has been unique, just like any other time we have. So my work is, we keep working. That's what we do. And, but my wife's work, she is head of a daycare center, and they said, I think we are going to open next week. Just because they charge tuition for the daycare, and then nobody's getting paid. She works for a church, so they don't put in unemployment tax. You just do that manually, so you don't get unemployment. All the workers not getting paid, and kids have no place to go really. So the parents have to call off work. It's like a cycle that keeps going on. My personal take on this whole coronavirus is, when I saw the symptoms, I'm pretty sure in February I had all these symptoms already. I'm pretty sure this coronavirus has already been through America, because I think I gave it to somebody else too, and they got over it too. It took like 3 or 4 days. Well, let me correct that. The sore throat lasts like 2 or 3 days. You're fine, but you're contagious. Then, like, the fever hits, you got a cough, you can't cough, and you could feel it going down to your chest. That's what causes pneumonia. People die from things. If your immune system is compromised, you will die from this. If it is not, you will probably survive. People die from things. We are all 100% terminal. There's no getting around this. So, the only way that you can have a panic through this whole nation, everything that we have going on here, the only way that you can have that kind of thing is if, pop this down just a little bit, or maybe I can just do this, is if it gets hyped up. If the story is told about a dragon, well, it's a dragon. Okay, sure. I can beef myself up with that kind of thing. Or it's a huge dragon. This thing's killed 1,000 people. It breathes fire on the nations. It stomps 4 houses at a time. Who knows, dude? But you see, with build-up of a story, there's 2 parts to that. One, I just completely took the problem and just blew it up out of proportion. The other one is that I also committed the sin of omission, which is something our media is very guilty of. The sin of omission, saying, we have 400 anti-dragon harpoons sitting down there that our current leader did, but we don't like the leader, so we're not going to mention that stuff. We're just going to focus on the horror of the dragon, which sends the world into a panic. And that's really honestly what we have. If you watch so I recommend, if you have not already, look at what happened in the political side of things. The bill that was going to be passed by the Republicans, and then it was delayed by the Democrats, because for some reason they want this economy to tank because they want to win in the polls in November. This is my opinion. Unfortunately, there's a world out there that will see us in weakness and just overrun us. We are mediocre or moderate when it comes to actual social values and beliefs, because we believe every person can rewrite them. Unfortunately, red-hot scorching paganism or atheism has a loud voice and will easily overrun with passion. If you look in the 1800s when Jefferson went against the Muslims, like when we were, as a Christian nation, passive, trying to love our enemy, and they come in here and they start, murdering us. Well, yeah, if you try to attack somebody who is not used to defending themselves, you're going to win. But the second we started to fight back, they just immediately caved. Because it turns out when you have purpose and meaning and structure and organization, when it comes to specifically the purpose, go for the why, for the truth, like Simon Sinek. If you haven't read Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, I strongly recommend it. But if you have that underlying reason, that thing that transcends, this truth that transcends about why people are important, then yeah, you will have a overall greater fighting force, because truth turns out is pretty strong. People might not want to hear it, but that's part of its strength. This world is quite interesting. But anyway, my wife's work decided they were going to open, but then they closed because of 3 or 4 people that said we shouldn't be open right now because of this. And it's the hype, just like anything else. Just like the reason that socialism, it's pitched to work. Because people do not do their history. They don't study basic economics. They don't study the philosophy of the two. I have a whole video where it talks about the philosophy of capitalism versus socialism. So if you want to see the definitions back there, go read them. But any system cannot be judged by its abuse. You have to go to the natural outworkings of it, because every system will be abused. So people, let's back up a second. Why would people panic if there's a pandemic? Why would people get so hyped if there's a pandemic? If we are time plus matter plus chance, we are all going to die anyway. It's 100% guaranteed. Why are we always panicking that every day could be the end, or every day I might not have my resources? It's almost as like we're not meant to live that way. Like death wasn't originally part of the program. It's just that when you, like, war doesn't do anything to death either. C.S. Lewis wrote about this. War brings it closer, makes you focus on it, and that's when you really get to see people's characters and true colors come out. Because it turns out that your character shines in adversity. It doesn't shine, like, you work out your worldview in the calmness of your chair. When thinking about your experiences, when reflecting, that's when you work out your worldview. That's when you do your self-discipline. So I believe strongly in martial arts. But then you take that character that you build up, and you take the outworkings of your beliefs, and you have your head lead your heart. And when you hit adversity, you feel one thing, but you know you should do another. Because you know the transcendent perspective, you get a bigger picture of the whole thing. So if death is the end, and death is oblivion, in a secular culture which focuses on eroding social values, thank goodness our president is actually not going this direction. But if you go toward that culture, then yes, you'll play on the panic. Ironically, the Judeo-Christian worldview does not say it's the end. It actually says all this stuff is going to happen before the end. My mentor likes to attribute it a lot to an actual body, because he's my mentor in the C.S. Lewis Institute. I have a couple of mentors, and I recommend you guys get some too. He says a lot of it's like the body. All right, you get sick in one part of the body, other parts of the body either compensate, or they start producing more. Like your liver's four-dimensional. Time is part of it too. So other organs might start working in tandem if one starts, not pulling its weight. It's very interesting. So the discipline that you have, if you work it out beforehand, it gives you such a strength. Because if you do not, and you just wait until the moment, and then you'll decide, well, you've already run out of time. This is we can attribute this to the martial arts world, right? I do my push-ups, my sit-ups, I keep myself in shape, so if the moment actually does happen, then I am competent and ready to defend myself. I hope that makes sense. At least it should, right? This is why pursuing faith and making a commitment to a decision and a worldview is so important. You have to do it up until the point of death. Once death happens, which there's a veil over eyes, and we cannot see past that. We all know it's going to happen. Only one person came back, according to history, and didn't really, he said a bit about it, but not a whole lot. I believe he had more words to say about hell than he did heaven. Because the absolute bleakness and sadness of hell is, it's really something to be focused on. Well, sort of. Depending upon which denomination you go toward in the Judeo-Christian worldview. Some people believe you got to remember what you used to be before the fall. Some people think you need to focus only on the good things. Some people think that prosperity preaching, that God only wants the best for you. Not always etched in reality, but it is there. So what are people so afraid of? If it is built into us, it's an evolutionary standpoint that we get to constantly evolve, why hold on to your life? If we know this, and we can work it out in our in an atheistic worldview, that we know this stuff, that our life ends, that secularism and materialism and getting stuff and pleasure is the ultimate goal of life, why not just have fun and then go? What is with the panic? If it is so etched in us, you think it would be something that would be a no-brainer. And that's where the concept of determinism comes into play, right? You have no choice over what you say. It is all, you're just a bunch of firing neutrons, electrons. There's no choice. You actually get rid of the concept of love there, because love assumes choice, right? You have the assumption that you could say no if you want to. You can't force love. This is one of the biggest thing, honestly, the key argument between the philosophies of capitalism and socialism. And socialism, so let's start with capitalism. Capitalism, you don't have to work with the system. The free market has a range of itself. Human creativity puts laws and regulations to make sure it doesn't get out of control. We are humans. We are amazingly versatile. So you'll have anti-monopolies or good working conditions, OSHA regulations. We have stuff like that to make sure things do not get abused. But you don't have to buy into the system, right? I forget if I said this or not, but one of our guys in our men's group, his name's Jay. He has a son who he has a mental condition. He's perfectly competent. He just doesn't like being around people. So he doesn't opt into society. He lives from what I understand, in a tent in the woods by a river. And that's what he does. You don't have to buy into the system. You can just live. Socialism only works if you enforce it on people. You have to give a certain amount of your wage away. You have to get, in capitalism you do not. Now there's taxes are a whole different thing altogether. But you have to buy into the system in order for things to work. You have to. And if you don't, it will be enforced upon you. You can only make so much. The rest of your money goes to someone you may never see. And I had a conversation with a guy earlier that said, you know what? I think you do see it in society, and you see it in your roads around you. I'm like, well, that's not reality, man. Eventually, you need to see, in order for love to work, in order for you to enjoy something that's, for the greater good, it has to be voluntary, and you have to have a face to it. I get pictures of the kid I sponsor in Indonesia. It's neat to have a face, watching him age from I think he's 13 now. He was 5 when I first started him, and he was tiny. But that's the reason why socialism works in the house structure. I delight in my daughters and my wife. I don't care if I make more money than them, I'll gladly give it to them. I accept this responsibility, gave my wife my word that till death do us part, and I got this. Know what I mean? Capitalism itself, you don't have to buy into the system, you can make it work around it. Socialism has to be enforced. But getting back to the topic on hand, in order for life to have meaning outside of determination, now you can argue that people just panic because they're determined to panic. They got to preserve their life. But at the same time, we rationally know this stuff. And anytime you make a truth claim, under the deterministic paradigm, you're violating determinism. Because determinism takes all the factors constantly, and it's constantly rewriting truth. That's why relativity kind of goes in hand with the deterministic worldview. Because whatever happens here, put something into the computer here, something else comes out here. You make a truth claim, this always happens. This always is. You're immediately violating that. But we know there are things that just are. Gravity. The laws of logic. I could say human beings just are. Now we can argue different types of the structure. But I am still, myself, and you see a female, also a human. You see my daughters, they're also human. There might be a little bit of relativity mixed in, but we understand what the concept of a human being is. So we make these truth claims. By the way, death is an absolute. Nobody has lived forever so far, and even then, that's unprovable unless you have concepts of both ends of time, of which, theoretically, sort of is not an end of time. I don't know. The last book that I know of that came out trying to argue that vacuous space is still a nothing. It is actually something, not a nothing. Given enough time, then the universe will create itself. Well, that's still based under the laws of logic. Laws of logic come from somewhere. Where do they come from? Why does gravity always go down? Why isn't it just variable constantly? Like the fact that there is built upon structures is almost undeniable. So we take this panic, this coronavirus, this truth, this determinism, and what do we do with all this stuff? I mean, it's great to philosophize, sure, but what is our end game? What do we take? How do we take this and make sense out of it? You can go around in circles under the meaninglessness of life itself, which is what Nietzsche did for so long. And if you have not read Nietzsche, I'd recommend it. Tough to follow, but it's worth just to see the outworkings of atheism. Jonathan Gray, another good author. Straw Dogs, I think, is one of his good books. I think I recommended that before. If you're an atheist, you should read that. Or if you're a Christian, read that. See what the other perspective is. So how do we take these things? I had a conversation the other day with a girl named Lindsay, and she said, she's a very liberal Christian. She said, you know, how do you can't talk to irrational people. I'm like, yes, you can. She's like, no, you can't. They just don't think. I'm like, well, why don't they think? She's like, well, they're scared. I'm like, why are they scared? She's like, they don't want to die. I'm like, and I said, like, why is that so scary? She's like, I don't know what you want to say. You keep asking me why. I'm like, well, fine, bear with me. Why is death so scary? She's like, some people just aren't ready. Like, why aren't they ready? They haven't thought about it. Ah, okay. Maybe they refuse to think about it. They run from it. So what do we do? Is this always a question I ask from kids, actually more so at work, because I think work is a great place to ask that. What do we do to make it better? Right? It's not enough to just poke holes in things. But one of the things you're supposed to teach your kids is come to me with a solution, not a problem. You know, Daddy, I'm thirsty. Okay, that's nice. So I'll just stand there. Daddy, can I have a drink of water? There you go. Or rather, I'd rather have say, could you please get me a drink of water? You know what I mean? Come to me with a solution that you already thought through, instead of just throwing out a random cry and a need without even thinking about the issue. Right? So what do we do to make things better? How do we get our thirst quenched? We ask for water because we can't do it ourselves. What do we do from the Judeo-Christian worldview? My responsibility is to proclaim. I proclaim that at a moment in time in history, the transcendent put himself into a physical human being for one lifetime, actually half a lifetime, that depends how far you want to go with 33 years, came into the world, spoke to direct us toward him, and then left. And he etched that word, this word right here, he etched it into time. And there's so many evidences about this. I could do a whole spiel on the validity of the New Testament, how there's like 4 or 5 different copies. But the thing is, it's uncontrolled. Think about the Quran as it was burnt. Like 4 or 5 people, they warred over this stuff, killed thousands of Muslims. Eventually one clan won, burnt all the other copies of the Quran, said his was the best, and published that. It was centralized. The thing about the Holy Scriptures is there's copies, but the copies are like all over the place. You have a copy over in Syria. You have a copy in France. You have a copy in Russia. You have a copy in Crete. You have a copy in Greece. And they're all like not even a generation out from Jesus' death. And you compare all of them together. You see the commonalities. And that's how we get scripture. And we are getting more and more of this stuff. It doesn't get worse over time. It gets better over time. The telephone analogy falls apart. So we take this truth that we know. This is the apologetic, right? 1 Peter 3:15. Always be ready to give an answer for the reason for the hope you have inside of us and inside of you. We take it and we give it to others. God decided to come down and try to rectify himself. Not even rectify himself. That's bad. Forget I said that. Tries to establish relationships. He put a person down on earth to die, to marry himself as a human, and transcends at the same time. So we'll have eternal life. We aren't God. We won't be God. Faiths like Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism, they try to, or in Scientology even, they try to throw you into that you'll be like another Adam, or Jesus was the first Adam and he became a God. Throwing yourself into that transcendence, or pantheism. If you're this much of a saint, you get so much karma, depending upon your Hinduistic belief, which are like millions and billions of gods over there. You could possibly ascend yourself up there. But how do you do that? Sitting in your chair right now in this materialistic environment, how do you throw yourself into heaven? There's 11 or 23 different dimensions mathematically proven, depending upon your version of string theory that you know. How do you make your mind traverse all of those and just go to... No one knows how to do this. This is not built into you. There are certain things that are, right? I had a friend, we were just talking about this the other day. He's like, yo, my baby's like 7 months old already. Dude, I remember when you went out to have her. That's crazy. Time flies. Like, yeah, I know. And that is an interesting concept, right? Why are we surprised at the flow of time? If it was so natural to us to age and progress and die, why is it such a surprise? Why is death so scary? If we know it's going to happen, we know it's going to come. Do you think we'd either prepare for it or be etched into us to know about it? But it's almost like it was something added on to that wasn't really totally natural. Almost. So our job is to proclaim. From the other side of things, Buddhism, your job is to try to opt out. Pantheism, your job is to try to increase karma. What your standard is for karma depends, and then you're never sure. As a Muslim, your good deeds have to outweigh your bad deeds. And even then, you're not sure because Allah, depending upon the hadith, might change his mind. And that's one of the, if you look into the insecurities of some of the apostles of Muhammad, that's one of the things they had. Like, eventually you start to resent God because you're not sure if he even judges fairly. It's all about his whim because you're so distant from him. There's no relationship to be established. In atheism, the message you preach is enjoy yourself while you're here. But you can only do that under the framework of a Judeo-Christian worldview. You can't. That's the only way. Where human beings have value. It's established by God that they do. It's in our Constitution. If it is not a fact that human beings have value, well then, I think this race doesn't have value. Boom. This is how you get fascism. The way I want to go with life is I want to make my children's lives easier by eradicating this other race they might have a problem with. Well, in the Judeo-Christian worldview, we even say that your enemy is made in the image of God and love them because they will be more impressed by your love. Because love, to be affected by love, you have to take time and reflection. It happens in here. Pain, when it happens, when you're trying to force your will on somebody, that happens here, on this flesh. It could happen on the mind too, but even that mental pain is more of a process. And what is pain but separation or threat of separation? When Christ was on the cross, he, one of his last words were, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And if there's ever a moment in time where more greater pain was felt, I cannot think of it, when part of the commune, which was the Trinity, which was God, a part of it was separate for a time. Separation from those you love. I mean, that's pain. It is. That is heartfelt anguish. If you're used to eternal commune with somebody or something, that's anguish. We are used to these bodies, but we know they're terminal. We will be separated from them. We know this. It's going to happen. It's going to be painful. Or maybe it won't. People die in their sleep. But even then, you don't know. Maybe it's just a giant way of, or the only way of separating your soul and spirit from this fleshy prison that you have that pulls at you constantly in temptation. You need a kind of pain to separate yourself from that and become something else. And that's promised to us. All this stuff kind of goes, it circles around. So, the message we preach, and by the way, Christianity is not meant to make this world a better place. It does help to give people value. Christianity is meant to proclaim that Christ will come again to save the world, to pull his chosen back. After a set number of, from what I understand anyway, after a number of martyrs are done, there's actually like a number if you look in Revelation. What the number is, it's debatable, but it's to a time. So that'll happen. Christ will be proclaimed under all the nations. So there's still places in this world who have never heard of Jesus. And how many years has it been since he died? It's going on 2,000. 2,000, the magical mark. So I think in our lifetime we might see some amazing things happen. But proclamation is important. But it's not only important. Because if I say one thing, then go back to being like everybody else, and there's nothing different about my life, then my words are empty. Faith without works, without a natural outworking of your faith, is empty. You have to be the salt and light. You have to live the life you preach. Hypocrisy. Everybody understands if you say one thing and do another, that's like the ultimate unforgiveness. Look at how many people do this stuff on Twitter and Facebook, and they go back like years looking for one little thing they did as if they're so pious. One little sin means they don't believe anything that person said. And we have mixed messages like believe all women. Well, how's that work? Like, feminism itself is very interesting. Instead of telling you my kids, this thing slowly goes down. My 3-year-old is messing with this. I don't know how. I can barely tighten this thing myself. See, it's Herculean baby strength. That's all I got. But anyway, so what do we do with our conversation in isolation? I feel a lot of you guys are staying at home right now, depending on your country you're in, your state you're in, the work we go to. Where is our voice? In our martial arts dojo, we have started to use Zoom to do online work, because martial arts itself is all about self-discipline. We can teach you so much in the dojo, but after a certain point, especially black belt and beyond, the only way you get better, and I can vouch for this, is if you do your own personal training. If I constantly do a workout that I give a white belt every day, there's no way I'm going to get better. There's just straight up no way. All right, 10 push-ups, here we go. Okay, it's good to do 10, but if you want to get better, you have to do more. If you want to get more solid in your worldview, you have to do more. You have to research. You have to choose some solitary pursuits that can echo into this life. So in the online world, your character is very important. I play games like, Spiral Knights PvP, Lockdown, and like Brawlhalla. Easy to get frustrated because you're fighting a person in a game who you can't talk to, and they can devalue you if they wish without any repercussions. You know, they separate you from who you are. A guy kicks you off the ledge because he either did something smart or he's amazing, or he did something dumb, got lucky, and he hits the taunt. Why there's a taunt button in games, I have no idea. But I can understand why. People are drawn to that. It draws you into the sensationalism, and that you get in kind of a, what's I'm looking for? Like a Stockholm syndrome. It hurts so much, but you know, it feels good to inflict that pain on others, but you just keep coming back to it. Anyway. So whatever message you are preaching, if you're not living it, even in the online world, you have to live it there too. Because if not, you're basically denying the sovereignty of God, deity, and character. You have to be the same person all around. I would suggest also that if you have different friend groups, there should be no fear of one friend group crossing another. Now, some personalities conflict, I understand that, but there shouldn't be a fear of you getting in trouble for you introducing all your crews together. They should all know you for being the same person, and that gives you way more peace of mind. So, anyway, I just wanted to go over some of the things that we are experiencing in this isolationist type of. It's like forced privatization, right? And in our county, we have an 8 p.m. curfew. I am first shift. I spent 9 years on third shift, second shift. All those guys that work there, I'm not going to say it destroys their social lives, but it sure does put a damper on them. First shift, I'm unaffected, and these laws are written by people working first shift. But I understand they're trying not to overwhelm the hospital beds. But we're spending a lot of our time here, like in front of a screen, or for ourselves in front of a book. Anyway, thanks for giving me a hearing. I'm glad you guys are like my subscribers. It's like 471 of this video, so I appreciate you guys listening in once in a while. I like having this be a little reflection of my life. And then, by the way, the only time I really play games is I hit the record button, so that, like, I don't do a whole lot outside of here. So it also helps if you have other people watching you to hold yourself accountable to a certain standard. Like, I had to stop playing Lockdown yesterday. I was just getting mad. The game mechanics are not very good, and I was getting mad at that, but I throw my aggression at people who abuse them. But it's not their fault. The mechanics are bad, and they're just there to be abused. It should be another power that could hopefully come in and do that. Right? I should love them just like I love anybody else. So, once again, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Click the like button. Subscribe if you want to see more in the future. I have some links below to some good books, some hoodies, and all that good stuff down there. So, check that out. Recording software. And I'll see you guys next time. Happy Sunday. Take care.